channel WKFK DTV7, where we interview veterans of the military and we bring you their stories, unedited and unchanged. So don't go away. We'll be right back with a very interesting story from one of our local veterans. Hello and welcome to Local Heroes here from the GI Museum and on WKFK TV7 today. I have the honor of talking to Mr. Granville Crane of Gulfport, Mississippi. Mr. Crane is a survivor of the sinking of the USS Indianapolis, a time in our history that we all need to appreciate very much because they took the components of the atomic bomb to the island of Tinian, and that ended World War II for the United States and saved generations to come. And Mr. Crane, I can't thank you enough for being here. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Well, let's get started in talking to you about how you got into the United States Navy in World War II.
Well, Pearl Harbor came on December 7, 1941. My brother and I was very patriotic, and he joined the Air Force and become a pilot. But I have to tell you, he washed out. He couldn't fly.
Okay.
He went under a bridge, as they called him, with his plane. But I was still patriotic. He stayed in the Air Force, though, in the States. He didn't go overseas or anything. And I couldn't get in the service because of my being so young. And I kept trying to get in. Nobody would listen to me. So I finally got permission, my parents, to sign for me. And I was a big old strapping boy, big, tall, you know. And they needed men on that ship in the Navy very badly. And they let me in and tried me out, I guess.
Well, let's tell everybody how old you were.
16.
16 years old, and you go in the Navy.
Yes.
During one of the most tumultuous times in the United States history because you're so patriotic.
Well, thank you.
That's just a product of everybody from that generation. You're the greatest generation.
I believe it was.
Now, you got in the Navy, and then you didn't go for any kind of advanced training. You went straight to a ship.
That's right.
And that ship happened to be?
The Indianapolis. It's USS, stands for United States Ship. And she was a flagship of the U.S. Navy. And she was the President Roosevelt and different presidents, you know, how they'd like to ride around on a ship. So I was in Admiral Spruant's Navy, Fifth Fleet, Admiral Halsey, and so on like that. All the time I was in the Navy. But I was on the old Indy when it went down. Of course, being disabled, I couldn't stay in the Navy. And they discharged me and gave me all the Purple Hearts and everything ready.
But what did you think of this ship when you first saw it?
Oh, it was beautiful.
You're probably a 16, 17-year-old kid, really.
Right.
And you show up and there's this huge, beautiful cruiser there.
I couldn't get over it. I fell in love with it. And I loved every minute of the time, but that was my home for a long time, years and years.
And when you first got on the ship, what was your job? What were you doing?
I was just a regular sailor, you know, the seaman they call it, seaman, third class. And then they gave me an engine room job down in the engine room. I didn't like that. They put me in a fire room. I didn't like that. They put me in the water tender, a job of having salt water being into fresh water, you know. I didn't like that. But when those boys wanted me to go over on the islands, you know, for liberty after the war had gone, you know, ceased on the islands, and they liked me so much, they said, we've got to have you as a, you know, we call it a policeman's job. And that's what a Master of Arms was.
So you got to be a Master of Arms. But let's go back. Let's talk about the engine room job. How was that? What were you doing down there?
Well,
I call it down there because it's down below deck.
Down below deck,
and
about
it
3
is
or 4.
hot.
And it's dirty. We had the job of cleaning up the oil spills down in the bilges, we call it. That's the bottom of the ship, where the screws went around all the time, you know. And the steam turbines and all was down there just filthy. It was my job to clean those bilges. And I didn't like that so well. So I got transferred to another division.
Okay. And then the water tender section. Now, most people don't know it, but you can't make salt water. You can't use salt water to make steam.
No, sir.
So you have to distill the salt water, make fresh water, and you use that to make the steam.
You're right, Doug. Quite a process. But that wasn't for me. It wasn't my job I liked.
You didn't like that either because it obviously was probably a very laborious job. It wasn't, you know, it was hot.
It was.
And it was probably pretty labor intensive, wasn't it?
It was.
Now, because you were making fresh water from salt water, you guys couldn't always use a lot of fresh water, could you?
No, sir.
So life aboard a ship is not as glamorous back in World War II as it may seem in some of the movies, is it?
No.
Well, tell us about your living situation, where your bunk was, and how that was being on that ship, and what your conditions as far as your living was how that went.
Well, there's 2 or 3 bunks all tied together on one side of the compartment in the ship, you know, where we were. And I always had the disadvantage to have the top bunk, always like the bottom. But they wouldn't put me up. He wouldn't put me down on the bottom. They put me up there on the top. And every movement, you know, made the top worse than what it was. And we had chow, which I didn't like very well.
You didn't like the food on the ship?
No, sir. Sometimes we'd stay out 18 months without any fresh vegetables, food, or anything. It was very bad. We had to get horse meat to eat over, you know, in other countries. They didn't have anything but horse meat, kangaroo meat, and things of that sort wherever our ship would go. And no fresh vegetables hardly. And we had Spam. I got so tired of Spam I couldn't eat still can't. But we had some good sailors on that ship that, you know, would help us, and we made it just fine. Tough.
Do you remember your first campaign? No, that's the
Yes.
first battle that you were in.
Yes,
on
sir.
board the USS Indianapolis.
Would you believe it was here in America? Yes, sir. Attu. That's way up there in Alaska.
Aleutian Islands.
That's right. And the stormy weather was bad. We lost more men that would fall off the ship in that rough weather, you know. And it was so frigid weather, so cold that it wouldn't last over 12 minutes, and they'd die. And we couldn't get them because of the waves up and down, so bad the wind was taking the waves. But anyway, we lost a lot of men that got off the ship on account of falling off the ship. But it was rocky, and we finally got in control of Attu and the places that we would bombard, you know, from our ship. We had 6 guns that would shoot 20 miles on our ship, 20 miles apiece. And that's what we'd do mainly for some of the islands, you know, that we had a campaign, had really bad, scary places to go to.
So you were at Attu, you were providing naval gunfire support to the
Yes,
the
sir.
troops on the
Yes,
fighting the Japanese.
yes.
The Japanese had invaded.
We got them out there.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did. That's actually part of the United States.
Yes,
Now, after that, where did you go from Attu?
we went to South Pacific. Yes, sir. And we stayed there till the ship went down. All the different islands had major battles, you know, 10 major battles.
After Attu, what operation did you go to?
The next one in line is on down there. What is it?
Gilbert Island?
Yes, sir. It's there on the list.
Yes, sir.
We went to the Gilbert Islands, and that was pretty rough, I tell you. First bad fight that I ever was involved in, but we had a lot of boys killed on that island.
Yes, sir. And you were again providing naval gunfire
Yes,
support
sir.
for the boys on the island.
Exactly.
But the Japanese aircraft, if they attacked the fleet, you would provide anti-aircraft fire.
Certainly. And suicide planes.
Yes. Now, what was your battle station? Whenever an attack occurred on the USS Indianapolis,
Yes,
where
sir.
did you have to go, and what was your job?
Like I told you before, Doug, I went to the fantail. That was my battle station.
That's the very back end of the ship.
Yes,
People
it is.
don't know what the fantail is.
Stern.
Yes, the stern.
Jumping off place. But there was a gun out there on the back, but I didn't man the gun, but I was in charge of it.
So you were in charge of making sure the gun was operating, the crew was
Ready.
there, and the ammunition was getting there. And
Exactly.
you were basically the person in charge of the gun in this
Captain.
operation. The gun captain. Okay, that's the word I was looking for. And you continued to do that the whole time you were on board the ship
Well,
until you got to be the master at arms policeman.
then.
How many cells did you have on the ship? For
2,
2 cells.
always crowded.
Always crowded, always crowded. Now you went from the Gilberts to the Marshall Islands,
Marshall Islands.
and you were doing that again. Same thing,
Same
naval
thing.
gunfire support.
And we did go ashore. Some of our men did. The various jobs we had to do.
Uh-huh. Did you make it ashore on any of these?
Oh, yes, sir. Nearly every one of them.
Yeah.
We'd go ashore. They'd ask if we wanted to go ashore. We want to get some souvenirs.
Souvenirs, that's right. You know what? GIs don't fight wars for their country. They fight them for the souvenirs.
There you go. That's pretty good.
And next is Ulysses. Yeah.
I can't read from
Yeah, and then the Marianas.
Marianas.
Tell us about the Marianas. The Marianas is really famous for something called the Marianas Turkey Shoot.
Yes, sir. That's where the Japanese really had a heyday with us, all those suicide planes. And we had our fill of those people. And we had Japanese suicide men, like they have Al-Qaeda and all. They'd swim out there from the island. They knew that they was about whipped, the fight. And one got on our ship. And we had to search the ship to find out where he was. But anyway, he finally jumped off. We never did get a hold of him. But he scared the rest, of the sailors.
Well, Mr. Crane, we're going to have to take a short break right here.
Okay.
And we'll be right back with more with Mr. Granville Crane here on Local Heroes, survivor of the sinking of the USS Indianapolis. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Local Heroes here on WKFK TV7. We're talking to Mr. Granville Crane. He is a survivor of the sinking of the USS Indianapolis. Mr. Crane, before the break, we were talking about some of the campaigns, and I want to ask you about the Tarawa campaign. It was particularly vicious.
It was.
Lost a lot of men there.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We lost more than the Japanese did because different tactics didn't work out.
Yeah.
But what really helped us more than anything is bombarding from our ship and other ships with these high-powered guns, And, of course, the overshoot, that's what happened. The overshoot of these guns killed a lot of our men. And that is a terrible thing.
Yes, sir, but what you have to think, if you hadn't been there, it might have been worse.
Oh, yeah, it would have.
So y'all spent time off the coast of this island, Tarawa.
Right.
And you were providing naval gunfire support day after day after day during this
We
campaign.
did.
Well, and let's pick up another one. We left off on our list at the Marianas, and then you went to the Battle of the Philippine Sea.
Yes. Now, that was all from our ship. We shot down the planes,
Yes.
the suicide planes and all, and it was a fierce battle. But we didn't have any islands to engage in, and go to shore with. But it was bad.
Were you actually at the invasion of the Philippines?
No, sir, I
Okay.
didn't go to the Philippines.
Okay. Just the Philippine Sea. Okay.
Yes.
And then we got the Tinian campaign. That was a pretty...
Oh, I tell you what, I love that island.
You love the island of Tinian.
I tell you why. The airstrip that we worked after we occupied, they got fastly on the construction to make that airstrip the longest one that they could make on a small island for the B-29. that took the atomic bomb to Hiroshima. We were so proud of that it's that close to the mainland of Japan. And we had an airplane that could take our bombs over there, without much trouble, and drop the atomic bomb to end the war.
Now, the airstrip actually went from is on one end of the island where the land started,
Yes,
and went all the way to the other end of the island where the land stopped.
You're
When
right.
the B-25 finally got airborne, if he didn't get airborne that last few feet, he was in the water.
He was.
So, but why you like that island? You went ashore on Tinian.
Yes, but the thing of it is, I liked it because the airplane,
Oh,
the carrying our cargo, that helped win the war ultimately,
Yes. Yeah, the B-29s were flying out of there to Japan.
Yes, sir.
Did you ever see any of those B-29s taking off and
No,
going?
sir, I didn't. They wouldn't allow me to go over there. So, secret, a secret
okay.
mission.
And what did you do when you went ashore on some of these islands? You went ashore on a lot of them.
Well, like I say, I was looking for souvenirs.
Souvenirs, is that all? Okay. Were you looking for a good mess hall, too? Get some
Well, they
decent
didn't have
food?
any.
Didn't have any, okay. All right, you go from Tinian to the island of Iwo Jima.
Iwo Jima. Now, that was a tough one. Iwo Jima. I'm telling you, that's a bad one.
Yes.
And that's the one we put the flag up.
Yes, and you were telling me before the interview started that you could actually see that flag on that island.
We did. It was up on top of the highest mountain on the...
Did you watch the flag being raised?
Yes, sir. We watched it through the
How
flag.
did that make you guys feel to see the
Oh, it
American
was
flag finally
wonderful.
flying over that island?
It made us so happy we couldn't hardly stand it after working so hard and fighting so hard, fierce fighting. We finally got secured to that island. Yes, sir.
So you witnessed it going up.
Yes, sir.
Did they announce it on the ship
Oh, they did.
that the flag was being
Everybody
raised over
was
you?
happy, jumping.
And you were at your battle station on the
Battle
Fantail?
station. Of course, we couldn't leave that battle station.
Which brings me to this point. How long were you at your battle station at a time? 10 hours, 12 hours?
4 on and 4 off.
4 on and 4
hours
off.
and 4 hours off.
Unless there was something going down like a Japanese
yes, sir.
kamikaze
That's
attack,
emergency.
you could not leave your battle station.
No, sir.
Sometimes that went on for hours and hours and hours and hours.
Days.
Were the kamikaze attacks bad at Iwo Jima?
Yes, sir.
They were even worse the next campaign that you went to, Okinawa,
You're right there.
because the Japanese were absolutely desperate to stop
They
you.
were into the war. They were desperate. They'd do anything, to bomb us and get us out of the way.
How did it feel to try to fight somebody who was bent on committing suicide in order to ram his plane into your ship?
Well, it was bad, Doug. I mean, these people, they wouldn't give up. I don't care if they was in a hole over there in the land. They wouldn't give up. I mean, they wanted to die for their emperor, and they just didn't have no give up in them. They would go down fighting.
So y'all had numerous kamikaze attacks when you were
Yes,
off.
we did.
Yeah.
Yes, we did.
And in March 1945, one of them actually hit you.
It did.
Well, where were you that day that aircraft hit the ship? Were you back on your battle station on the Fantail?
No, sir. I was below decks. I was below decks at the time. But I wasn't in the mess hall where the bomb came through, and go to the bottom of the ship. But we all felt the concussion of it. They closed all the compartments and everything. But some of the buddies I knew, my shipmates, was killed with that attack of that suicide plane.
Yeah, there was about 29 of them in the mess hall.
Yes, sir, there was. They were eating, right.
And the bomb went right through the mess hall.
Right through the mess hall.
And it went all the way through the bottom
All
of the
the way
ship.
through, and then exploded
Under the ship.
under the ship.
Now, you lost your saltwater distilling plant.
Yes, sir, we did.
You lost some of your fire rooms and some of your
Yeah.
engine rooms. You were
Very
pretty
high,
much
heavy damage.
very heavy damage.
But they patched us up. They patched our ship up enough to go back to the States. We went back to San Francisco, Mare Island, and there they worked us over and did a fast job because they had secret mission for us to have to take the atomic bomb, but they didn't tell us what it was.
Yeah.
And we took those 2 atomic bombs, and by the way, I believe with all of my heart, they can't prove, they never did tell us, but they said we only took 1 atomic bomb, we had 2.
Well, other men that I've talked to
I know.
tell me that both of those bombs were on that ship, and that all of the components for both those bombs were on that ship.
That's my conviction.
And I've talked to Mr. Maurice Bell, who has passed away, but
Yes.
Mr. Bell tells me that both those bombs were on that
believe
ship.
it.
And I believe the people that were actually there.
Yes.
So I believe that those
know
bombs
it.
were on that ship. Now, when you got back to Mare Island, did you get any liberty? Did you get to go home, or did you stay right there on the ship?
They wouldn't let me go home, but my folks came. I'm from Texas, and my Texas family came out there and stayed with me, but I couldn't go home.
And were you master at arms at this time?
Yes, sir, but I was under secret orders. Nobody knew anything. We couldn't get liberty. They patched that ship up, and they told us to be quiet, not to say anything, because it depends on every day that we in that shipyard getting patched up. There'll be one day the war would go on and on, but every time that they'd turn us loose for the days, to go back to sea, it'd be closer to the end of the war. That's all they'd tell us.
And you had no idea what they meant by that?
No, indeed.
But did you know that there was something special in store for the Indianapolis?
I thought so.
You did?
I thought so.
Where were you the day that the big crates got loaded onto the ship, onto the aircraft hangar?
Doug, all the brass would come in. The big officer, would come in and watch those crates and everything. We knew that something was up when we saw all those admirals and all that. And they put those crates on our ship, and they wouldn't let us go near the crates at all. They had the automatic weapons, the Marines all around them all the time. And we knew something heavy was up, but they wouldn't tell nobody.
You had no idea what it was?
No, sir.
But if somebody would have walked up to you and said, Master at Arms, we got 2 atomic bombs on our ship, would you even know what an atomic bomb was at that time?
I'm afraid not.
See, but the mission had to be secret.
It did.
And it was. You didn't even know.
No, I didn't.
Now, one of the most popular rumors that went about the ships, and ships are known for scuttlebutt, and you know that because you were on a ship, was that in that crate, those crates were full of scented toilet paper going to General Douglas MacArthur.
That's what we heard.
So that was the most popular one. There were some others.
Yes.
But that was the one that I think everybody chose to believe.
I think so.
So you get these crates on the ship under great secrecy. You have to know something's up. They're telling you that for every day that the Indianapolis is in dry dock getting patched up. Now, when you say patched up, they didn't fully fix the ship. They just made it serviceable enough to get it back to sea.
Right. But it was so fast. It's the fastest heavy ship in the fleet. And that's why they chose us. And the very fact that we had the record of going from the States to Tinian, that saw the record right there. We still have it.
Yeah, you set the steaming record for a cruiser, and it still holds true today.
Yes, sir.
No other cruiser's ever done that. Y'all should be proud of that.
We are.
But the feeling of the crew, what was that? How did the crew feel? How did y'all feel about this? Were you apprehensive? Were you proud? What were you thinking about this mission?
Well, we were proud because we saw some people there that said that they were of the Navy, and we knew that they weren't Navy men. I mean, they had uniforms and everything, but we knew that they didn't talk like Navy men. And they were these scientists that took care of the atomic bomb and all the components, and everything that went off the ship when the crates went off, when the atomic bombs was taken off, unloaded.
Now we're hearing something, folks, that's not in the history books. Scientists dressed in Navy uniform,
yes, sir,
went aboard the USS Indianapolis with those crates,
To the end.
rode the ship to Tinian, and got off when the crates left.
That's right.
That is not written in the history
No,
books.
sir.
And you're hearing it here on Local Heroes. And unfortunately, Mr. Crane, we're out of time for this show, but I promise you we're going to have another one, and you don't want to miss it because you're going to come back and hear more about what you're not reading in the history books. So join us again next time for the continuation of the story of Mr. Granville Crane, survivor of the USS Indianapolis. Thank you for watching this edition of Local Heroes here on WKFK DTV7, where each week we bring you a story about a veteran, unedited, unchanged, and in their own words. So join me again next week here on WKFK DTV7, or visit our website at WKFK.com for archive shows about local heroes. Welcome to Local Heroes here on WKFK DTV7, where we interview veterans of the military and we bring you their stories, unedited and unchanged. So don't go away. We'll be right back with a very interesting story from one of our local veterans. Hello and welcome to another edition of Local Heroes here on WKFK TV7, coming to you today from the GI Museum in Goshen. We're continuing our conversation with Mr. Granville Crane. He is a survivor of the sinking of the USS Indianapolis. He's from Gulfport, Mississippi, and he was a master-at-arms, second class on the USS Indianapolis when the ship went down. But Mr. Crane, in our last show, you revealed something that's absolutely fascinating to me. When the crates were loaded onto the USS Indianapolis, these men that were kind of foreign to you guys who were on the ship, and I don't mean foreign men, they were strange, but they were dressed in military uniforms.
Right.
And you knew that they weren't Navy
They're
guys.
civilians.
By the way they acted, they didn't know Navy regulations. No. So what did y'all think about that?
We thought they were.
Oh, well they were... But they were actually impersonating Navy officers.
Yes, they were.
So how did you feel about that?
We felt bad, but they couldn't even pronounce Navy jargon. In other words, they couldn't even talk Navy. The scuttlebutt idea, you know.
That's how you really ferret people out.
Yes, sir.
So you're thinking, what is up with this? Who are these guys? But they rode the ship all the way to the island of Tinian.
They did.
And they got off when the crates got off.
Yes.
Now, when they unloaded the crates, it's my understanding that you didn't pull up to a dock in
No.
Tinian. A big barge comes out.
Exactly.
Now, history says that you pulled up to a dock at Tinian. Wrong. Big barge comes out, crates go off. Did you feel any relief? Like, oh gosh, I'm so glad those guys and those crates are gone.
You know, we wasn't all that under pressure because we didn't know exactly what was taking place. We didn't see any or feel any danger, Dub.
You didn't?
No. I mean, it's just another thing to go a phase during the war. We didn't expect any danger to it.
Well, after all these campaigns, I don't guess that was a feeling of danger
been through
because
that.
all you were doing was going fast.
That's it.
Okay, now you left the island of Tinian, and you were going to get ready for the invasion of Japan. That's where the ship was being
That's where we
sent.
were.
So you leave the island of Tinian, and something happens about 12 o'clock at night.
It's halfway from Tinian to the Philippines. Halfway, we were sunk. The torpedoes hit us about halfway.
Now, divine providence probably set in here because you went to the captain.
That's right.
Captain McVeigh, who was a fine man.
He was.
And you asked him,
Right.
Captain, can I sleep up on the deck? And why did you ask him if you could sleep on the deck?
Well, it was so hot below.
South Pacific.
Yes,
You wanted to get up there where it was a little cooler. Now, you put a cot in one of the hangars,
I did.
and you were asleep in that cot when the first torpedo hit.
Yes.
Okay, if torpedo impacts the ship, obviously there's a shudder, there's a shake, there's a loud noise, and you're awake at that point.
I knocked off the cot.
What do you think?
We thought like I said, we thought the boilers blew up. And it happened before, but a large explosion, of course, when the torpedoes hit, because the second one blew up our ammunition. They knew exactly where to place that torpedo to the ammunitions, which, of course, that killed us here.
Yeah. Well, the first impact knocks you out of your cot.
Yeah.
You get to your feet, and then all of a sudden, I mean, it's not 20, 30 seconds later, the second impact.
That's right.
And it's more severe than the first.
It was.
Do you realize at that point, something's really bad here?
I did.
What began to happen after that second torpedo hit the ship?
Well, of course, we had trained over 3 years and a half that we'd go to our battle stations, and mine was aft.
On the fantail.
On the fantail.
Gun captain.
Well, we just had a lot of men back there that didn't know what to do, so we kind of rounded them up, But we was waiting for orders to abandon ship because we knew it was going to go down, because when it bellied up and like that, we knew it was going down.
Only 12 minutes.
12 minutes.
So you're on the fantail, you're waiting for orders to abandon ship. Did you have a life jacket?
No.
No life jackets. So the ship starts turning over.
Right.
How do you get off the ship? How did you make your way off of the ship?
Well, like I said, I held those sailors as long as I could by telling them, don't jump off. We've been through this before at Okinawa, and wait for the captain or somebody to tell us to abandon ship. That was a mistake on my part.
Well, but you were only following orders.
I was following orders.
Well, Mr. Crane, you were following orders, and you finally get off the ship. How did you actually get off of the Indianapolis into the water? Did you jump?
Doug, we was all so frantic, scared too, you might say, to jump off. We were just jumping off at our leisure time, but we finally jumped off, and I was one of the last ones to jump off the ship. But some of my men that I had authority over were hitting the screws that were still turning. The ship was still turning the screws, and some of them was killed because they jumped into the screws. And then I was taught in boot camp to swim as far away from the ship as I could, and I remember that, and that's what I did with the oil slick around me, and couldn't hardly breathe. But anyway, when I come up for air, I saw my home, the Indianapolis.
We're going down under the
water.
Yeah, that's your home for 3.5 years.
Yes, sir.
The most beautiful ship in the United States Navy. I can understand how that would be, but the water was full of oil.
It was.
And when you jumped into the water, it wasn't like jumping in a swimming pool. You went way down, and then you had to come back up.
Had to go.
Now, because it's nighttime, you're disoriented. You really don't know where the surface is.
No.
But you managed to get there. When you get there, you're inhaling and you're ingesting a tremendous amount of this thick black oil that you used to burn in the boilers. Did it make you sick?
Yes, it did. But one good advantage, we didn't have a fire on the diesel oil, and that would have been terrible to have a fire all around us.
In addition to it, yes.
So that we were blessed by not having the fire to cope with.
Now, you did not have a life jacket.
No, sir.
And you were wearing
dungarees.
And you're in the water. No shoes.
No shoes.
No way to support yourself. All you had to do was tread water. Were there men around in the water with you?
Yes.
Could you see them or hear them?
I could see all covered with oil, slick. But there were things off the ship floating, the particles like ammunition cans, wooden potato boxes and things like that we held on to.
And that kept you afloat?
Yes, sir.
Was the water cold?
It was. Cold at night and hot in the day.
Well, the night goes away, and you're ready for the sun to come up to get warm.
That's right.
But the sun is up a long time, and you get absolutely burning hot.
Exactly.
Now, we all know that this is one of the worst naval tragedies in the history of the United States Navy.
It's the worst one at sea, Doug.
At sea.
It's not, Pearl Harbor was the worst.
But the worst.
But at sea,
yes.
we were.
But you're in the water, the sun comes up. Did you think you were going to be rescued the next day?
You did. We thought that, and we hoped that.
But it didn't come.
At days, the daylight brought our enemy to us, and that was the sharks. We could see them floating and swimming toward us.
So this was right at sunrise?
Sunrise, yes,
You could
sir.
see them.
Yes, sir. And the way we would keep them away from us is to yell, and our feet and our hands, make a noise all we could. And as long as we stayed together as a group, Greg, they would just bump us and go off, unless some dead sailor, Marine, would go out from the group. They'd take him down, of course, every time. But they were cowards to some extent, the sharks were, because of the fact that we stayed in a group. But let one single sailor go off, he'd always never come back.
Now, your group, how many men were in your group? And was there a lot of people
We
together?
had the biggest group, Doug. We had 300. Dr. Haynes' group, we had over 300 in that group.
And Dr. Haynes was he was a great guy. He was swimming around trying to do what he could.
Exactly.
So sun's up, you're covered with fuel oil.
Right.
You're hot. You don't have anything to drink.
No.
You don't have any food.
No.
The sharks are circling you.
No life rafts either.
No life rafts. No K-Pop life jacket
No,
at this
sir.
point. And then you're waiting for the sun to go down to cool off. But when the sun goes down, you get freezing cold again.
And the weather, the wind was picking up, the waves, and it was rough water, really rough.
So when you weren't rescued at the end of that first day, did you have hope that you were going to be rescued?
Yes, sir. I never gave up hope.
That's why you're still here.
Right.
But my point is that you still had hope. You still had hope that the United States Navy was sending ships to your location to pick you up.
We
out.
were. But some of those men were making bargains with God. God, if you only get me out of this, if I could only be rescued, I'll do anything you want me to do, making bargains with God. Now, I've been through that before at Okinawa and different times. I didn't make any bargains with God. I mean, the very fact that I faced death before, and I wanted to do it at God's time to die and not take my own life or suicide or anything like that. It was the God in me to believe that He will take care of me. I didn't make a bargain with Him.
So it's night on the second night, and it's very cold.
Yes.
And are the sharks around you at night?
All the time.
They never left. They were there in the
No.
daytime and at night.
Exactly.
And men were disappearing.
Men were disappearing.
By this time, are people getting delirious?
Yes.
And obviously they're getting delirious because there's nothing to drink.
They drink the wrong water.
They drink the salt water, and that's deadly.
It was.
And some of them are at the point where they're delusional, and they're seeing things on the horizon. They're
crazy.
hallucinating,
Mm-hmm.
okay, and they're seeing things going on. So they're trying to swim away from the group.
Yes.
This is bad for them. They never appear again.
No.
Are you trying to keep your head about you until you don't swim away?
Yes.
You are. But they still do it anyway.
I tried to get them to stay too. I mean, I was trying to help them, but it was myself.
Okay.
Like Dr. Haynes,
Like Dr. Haynes. Dr. Haynes was a real, I guess you'd call him a hero.
He was.
He was a hero.
Yes, sir.
We're going to have to take a short break here, Mr. Crane, and we'll be back with more local heroes right after this. Don't go away. You're not going to want to miss the end of this story. Welcome back to Local Heroes here on WKFK TV7. We're continuing our conversation with Mr. Granville Crane. He is a survivor of the sinking of the USS Indianapolis. And Mr. Crane, we were talking about you're in the water. You're in the water basically 4.5 days.
Right.
You didn't give up hope. You tried to keep the men in the group. You kept your wits about you. But you finally see this airplane fly over. Mm-hmm. And it's a Lockheed Ventura. Mm-hmm. And the pilot of the airplane actually thought the men in the water, you were all spread out, was a Japanese submarine.
What he said.
And he was going to drop bombs on you until he saw the submarine waving. How did you feel when you saw that airplane?
Well, we thought it was the real thing, you know, that we would be rescued. But we had that hope that we wouldn't be delivered from that water all the time, those of us that were Christians. But with the sharks around us all the time, eating on our buddies and everything, we were right ready for anybody to help us, you know. And when the plane came and dropped the life rafts and the different supplies, even lifeboat, and I got in a lifeboat, and of course I was exhausted and collapsed and everything. I couldn't talk. Saltwater sores was all over me, you know. And the USS Bassett was ordered to come and pick us up in that group of over 300 men, Dr. Haynes' group. And they took us and they helped us over into the ship, you know. And they were magnificent people. They gave us the red carpet treatment. They'd give us soup, give us their bunks that they had for their own, and just very good people, you know, that had sympathy toward us as survivors. And they were so happy to see us and clean us up and made us feel like a man again.
Yeah. Now, the airplane didn't actually rescue you.
No.
The Bassett was one of the ships that came,
right.
And they were actually lowering LCVPs into the water. Yes. Did they pick you up at night? Was it nighttime when they picked you up?
Like I said now, Doug, I might have said it wrong a while ago. I was 4.5 days in the water.
Yes, sir.
Before I saw the plane.
Yes, sir.
But from another half a day, I was still in the water.
Yes, sir.
Because they took that long for the USS Bassett to come and pick me up.
But was it at night when they finally got you out of the
water?
water?
No, sir, it was the next morning.
It was the next morning?
It was the 6th day.
So you see the plane come over. You think, I'm going to get rescued.
Yes.
But then it's nighttime again.
Nighttime again.
And you still didn't lose hope.
No, sir. I had my faith in God.
Well, the Almighty was on your side, and He sure helped you there.
That's right.
The next morning, the Bassett shows up, and these LCVPs are put over the side, and they come around within the group, and they're picking you up out of the water.
Exactly.
And you get on board the Bassett, and according to Mr. Bell, who I've spoken to, they were actually putting you in the showers and scrubbing that oil off.
They did at first.
Did they get all the oil off of you, though?
No, sir. I had oil for a long time.
And the taste of the oil, I understand, stayed with you for months.
Putrid.
Now, you obviously couldn't eat or drink a whole lot.
No.
Now, Mr. Bell tells this story. One of the first meals that he was offered in the mess hall on the ship, he sat down and they put it in front of him. It was fried fish. That didn't happen to you, did it?
No, sir.
No. The captain of the ship actually came and apologized to the men for serving them fried fish, but he said it was already on the menu and we didn't have time to cook something else. And Mr. Bell said he didn't eat the fish. Do you remember what some of the first things you got to eat were?
Well, Doug, I couldn't eat solid food. It was that sick at my stomach, you know, ulcerated stomach, kind of the oil, diesel oil. But I had soup and juices for a long, long time until they took me to Samar in the Philippines in the field hospital. And then I began to come to myself. I was still delirious, you know. And I tried to walk, and I couldn't. I fell on my face. And one man said, to the doctor, said, "Son, I'm sorry you lost your hand." And I said, "Doctor, I gave my hand." I can't help it.
It's okay, Mr. Crane.
And the Lord was with me, I tell you. I was saved before I went into the Navy. We had prayer meeting, Bible study the night before, 3 hours before the ship was sunk. And I believe that helped me to get through the strength of a congregation of men, you know.
Yeah.
And they all prayed before the torpedoes hit. So at sunrise, when the sharks came, we just hugged one another and kicked and hollered and scared the sharks away, you know.
Camaraderie.
Yes, sir.
Staying together.
Staying together.
Band of brothers.
Man. And it reminded me of the people in fellowship of true churches, you know, that they pulled together.
Yes.
And they wouldn't do anything to hurt one another. But some of them had, I'll have to admit, they had drinking so much salt water, it made them delirious, you know.
Yes, sir.
And they had knives and different weapons that they used, and they attacked some of our own shipmates. Of course, you read that in the book.
Yes, sir.
And that was a terrible thing to happen. But
you had the discipline, though, Mr. Crane, to not drink the salt water.
not drink the water. I knew I couldn't do that. I had that much sense. I mean, I'm not bragging, but I knew better.
Well, yeah, of course. You was obviously trained not to do that,
Yes.
but you still were able to make yourself not do it. So that's a lot of discipline there. Now you got rescued by the Bassett. They took you to Samar
Philippines.
in the Philippines, and you were in a hospital.
Yes.
And how long were you there in the Philippines in that
A
hospital?
long time. Well, not too long, because they wanted all of the survivors to be flown to Guam. That's what our orders were. So we were flown to Guam and stayed for convalescing until we got a ship to go back to the States.
So you were on Guam for quite a while.
Quite a while, yes, sir.
And you were recuperating.
Right.
You were getting better, and you were
Amen.
able to eat solid food, maybe,
Amen.
and you were able to walk around.
That's
and
right.
They were taking good care of you. And then they put you on a ship.
They put me on a ship.
Mr. Crane, how did that feel to get put back on a ship to go home?
I didn't like it because I had that phobia. Like I tell you, I don't like to get in a fishing, deep sea fishing boat anymore. And
No, I don't blame you. I don't blame you.
But they were good to us, and we got back to San Diego where the ship took us.
How did you contact your folks at home and let them know you were okay? Because, this was in the newspapers back
Yes,
here.
it was.
That the Indianapolis was lost.
Right. We were lost at sea. What do they call that? Lost at sea. I forget there's 3 initials they go by. But anyway, they thought we were lost at sea.
Yeah.
Even my mother.
Yeah.
And
Did you get to send her a telegram or something?
no, sir.
No?
It was a surprise to her. They didn't tell me not to, so I got enough money to catch my bus and go home and surprise them. And when I walked in,
Wow. I bet you that was a shock.
it was.
So you get back to the States, and you get a bus ticket, and you go home to Texas?
Texas.
What part of Texas was that?
Galveston.
Galveston, Texas. Oh, it's on the coast.
Yes.
Oh, no. The water's close. But you get home, and you surprise your mom, and you surprise your dad, and you get some time, I guess, to convalesce before you're discharged from the Navy.
Yes.
You lose a lot of friends in this?
I did. You mean died?
Did you lose a lot of friends in this sinking of the Indianapolis?
Oh, yes, sir. A lot of them.
I mean, you're on board that ship for 3.5 years, so you obviously knew a lot of it.
I did.
And being master at arms, you may have locked him up in the brig a couple of times.
True.
But it obviously, everybody that was on that ship, it changed your life.
It did. It did.
And it probably gave you a different outlook. How do you feel about your whole service in World War II, including getting that atomic bomb to Tinian and ending that war when you did?
Well,
I know you're going to say I was only doing my duty, but obviously it was an extraordinary thing that you guys did to get that bomb there so quickly. I mean, you set a record for speed from the United States to Tinian, and you had to be working just overtime to keep that ship going that fast, that long. It don't just happen. There's people that make it happen.
But you know, Doug, we don't think that we're American heroes. We were only trying to do, like I said, like you said a while ago, only trying to do our duty, which we did, you know, I guess we did. But anyway, we had a ministry after I got discharged. It was in the ministry of preaching,
yes,
pastoring churches, and that made my life so much richer and so much better. I could help some poor lost soul, you know, that really needed the Lord, because I had the experience, you know.
Yes, sir.
The Lord touched me.
Yes, He did. He was there with all of you.
Right.
So you finally get discharged from the Navy, and what did you do after you got out of the Navy?
Well, I looked for me a girl.
Ah, there's always one of those, isn't it?
My wife, we've been married 63 years, 62 years.
You finally found the girl.
Well.
And you got married.
We got married. It's a long story about finding her, because she was in our community. You know?
Okay.
But anyway.
But you did find her.
I
got married.
Got married.
Went on about doing what every other member of the greatest generation has done since World War II.
Right.
And that was making the United States the country that we all enjoy today.
Well, we tried. Sure
well,
did.
you did. You did the best job.
Thank you.
All of you did.
Thank you.
And you know, the American people owe you guys a debt of gratitude that we can probably never properly say thank you for. But to put you in that category of the greatest generation is not enough, in my opinion. I'm not going to call you a hero,
no,
because you don't want me to, but I think you are. But I want to thank you for coming on the show. And thank you for sharing this very poignant and moving story with me and all of the viewers of this show, Mr. Crane. You are my hero.
Well, you're welcome.
And I appreciate you. And I thank you for what you did. And I owe my freedom to you, you guys today. Without you guys, we wouldn't be here.
Appreciate that.
And we're going to come back after this, and we're going to hear more from Mr. Crane. He's got a little bit of something that he wants to tell you all about. So don't go away. Stay tuned for the next Local Heroes, and you'll hear more from Mr. Granville Crane, survivor of the sinking of the USS Indianapolis. Thank you for watching this edition of Local Heroes here on WKFK DTV7, where each week we bring you a story about a veteran, unedited, unchanged, and in their own words. So join me again next week here on WKFK DTV7, or visit our website at WKFK.com for archive shows about local heroes.